say, chaps, I have a spiffing idea.
Today I'm exploring an impenetrable ring of concrete that surrounds London, and it's not the M25. It is the Outer London Defence Ring, or what's left of it, which is stuff like this. In June 1940, Nazi Germany seemed unstoppable, and Britain faced a very real threat of being invaded.
I say, chaps, Jerry's looking a bit perky, isn't he? I think we may need to defend ourselves. If we build a small ring of fortresses around London, that should do the job nicely, I think, yes.
Now, defensive positions were devised to divide the whole of Britain up. They were known as stop lines, and the man responsible for this plan was spectacularly named General Edmund Ironside. With a name like that, you'd have to be a general, really. His plan was to effectively divide the country up into strategic segments. The longest stop line was known as the GHQ line. There was also, for London, 3 concentric rings known as the inner, central and outer defence lines. The outer defence ring is line A, and that was the one which was mainly built thanks to its rural locations, such as here, which is still a field to this day, 80 years later. Due to the countryside location, the outer line A was the most well developed, mainly because there was the least amount of urban development for them to be able to build in. And in fact, a lot of it still exists simply because it was so remote. They actually decided within a few weeks to stop development of the entire defence programme, however, because they realised tactical guerrilla warfare would be more effective, and it was simply not really practical to build a load of defences which, if were overrun, would be useless anyway, and actually could even be a hindrance if you then wanted to counter-attack. Despite the last 80 years and the fact that within a few weeks these defences weren't even needed, because they were so well built to repel attacks, a lot of them still exist, and it's actually more effort to demolish them than it is to just leave them where they are, like this one on the side of a road near Bushey in North London. It's not causing any harm, it's not causing any hassle, so why get rid of it? And maybe in the future we'll need it again. We won't. The most common remaining element of the outer defence ring is the pillboxes. Originally there were about 28,000 built across the country. It's estimated there's about 6,000 left now. A lot of them have been reclaimed by nature, but they were usually situated intersections of transport links and generally strategic places of importance. Now, alongside the pillboxes and natural defences like the canal and rivers and railway embankments and so on, roadblocks were also needed in places. Back in the 40s as well, roads as we know them were much smaller, and country lanes like this one were actually considered worth defending. After all, if you could drive a tank or troops over it, then it was useful. So alongside concrete blocks, which they would leave on the side of the road, which could be dragged across at the last minute, many of which are still in place because they were so hefty. They also developed another strategy, which was using these bent rails, which would enable other rails attached to spikes or barbed wire to be dragged across the road and wedged in place. There's usually 2, one on each side of the road, to create a hairpin in the road, and this would obviously slow down any vehicles and force, even just for 20 minutes or so, any advancing troops to have to actually work hard to clear it, and that would give the defenders enough time to rearm, regroup, pass communications further down the line, or simply lay more traps up ahead. Here are some more concrete roadblocks. They're actually a really effective way of slowing advancing troops down. They'd struggle to move something this big because it's as tall as I am, and I'm 5'10", and it's even wider, and there's 4 of them. Though in a few places there are still the remains of roadblocks known as Dragon's Teeth, which were designed to stop tanks driving down main roads. For obvious reasons, most of them had to be removed. But up here near St Albans, there's a few left in this old country lane, which is no longer a road. Yeah, these are the foundations of them. Remarkably, some of the inner London defences have actually survived as well, like this ridiculously obvious one on Putney Bridge. Now a lot of these defences are so overgrown and hidden now, they're almost impossible to spot or find. This, by the way, is actually an old railway line which in the 1930s and 40s was still functioning and formed part of the defences. And then if we go down here, which is at this point, I'm just going to film some B-roll and we'll have that over the top. Otherwise, what's there to look at? And believe it or not, there is a pillbox, anti-German invasion defence pillbox hidden in there. It's almost hard to think really that 80 years ago this pillbox I'm sat on and the many others like it, they were being hastily built because the population had the resolve to fight. They had the very real prospect of being invaded by an occupying force, and they were willing to defend themselves no matter what. These pillboxes, the concrete blocks blocking the road, the dragon's teeth, they were all a literal last line of defence against tyranny and oppression, and it just goes to show how seriously things were being taken, that they were even built in the first place and that people were willing to fight for their freedom. Now, 80 years later, it's almost inconceivable to us that this is what things came to, and these remnants, these relics dotted around the countryside are all that's left of that really, and they're quietly rotting away back into the landscape. Maybe in another 80 years they'll be gone completely. Everyone else who remembers it definitely will be. Now if you've enjoyed this video and any others you may have seen, feel free to subscribe, like, comment in the comments below. There's plenty more of other things coming, that's probably true. It might not be true, I don't know, it depends if I get around to doing it. But like, subscribe, comment, share, do all the things you do on the internet. I'm stuck on top of a pillbox, so I may not be able to get down.